Elsie Jensen here. Today we are going to make some lamb burgerettes with a potato carrot skillet, and then a little gravy with the leftover drippings from the lamb burgers. And then we're gonna whip up some pumpkin scones with a little brown sugar glaze on it. So let's start with the pumpkin scones since those will need to bake up. And so I'm gonna start out with my dry ingredients and then we'll whip up our wet ingredients and then we'll marry the two together. So we're gonna start with 2.5 cups of flour. So one, oh, there's a pocket in that one. 2, and 1/2 cups of flour. Then we're gonna add in a 1/2 cup of brown sugar. So with scones, there's not a lot of sugar in them. They're just, I think, the perfect amount of sweetness to give you that treat without making it feel so guilty. So we're gonna do 1/2 cup of brown sugar and make sure you have it packed in there. There we go. And then for our spices, we're gonna do 2 teaspoons of pumpkin pie spice and 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. So you've kind of got a little bit of a stronger cinnamon kick in it.
A question, how were the pizzas last night?
Oh, they were excellent, delicious. You know, homemade pizza is just so much better than like what you can get. So we're gonna have 2 of the pumpkin pie spice, but I got my favorite, which is the sausage, mushrooms, onions, and peppers. Like, I just love that combo. And the cheese bread was gone instantly. That was everyone's favorite. And the dessert pizza was also gone. Those were the 2, and the cheese. So the cheese bread, the cheese pizza, the dessert pizzas, those are the ones that like disappeared the fastest. Teaspoon of cinnamon. And then we're gonna do 2.5 teaspoons of baking powder. So 1, 2, and 1/2. And then last but definitely not least, we're gonna add our salt in. We're gonna use 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then we're gonna just give these dry ingredients a quick kind of shake up, you know, a little whisk through. I just like to use my pastry cutter, but you could use a spoon or a fork. But we're just gonna toss them, kind of essentially stitch them together. There we go. And this is just to make sure that baking powder and those spices get mixed up well, so when we cut our butter into it, you're cutting it into all of this dry crumb. Okay. Good. So now we're gonna add a stick of cold butter. So you wanna make sure you kind of take it right out of the fridge and use it pretty quickly. We're gonna cut this into our mixture, and this is gonna make our nice dry, like our nice flaky layers in our scone. So I'm gonna first start by kind of quartering it there and then cutting it through. This is just going to make it a lot easier for me to cut through it with my pastry cutter. But you can also use a food processor if you want to, for just a little bit easier cutting into it, although I find it goes pretty fast. And just coat that butter bits with some flour first. It just kind of helps it from completely sticking to my pastry cutter blade. And then we're gonna go in with this and we're gonna cut that butter into our flour until we have no pieces of butter bigger than like a pea. And that's just to prevent any big like butter pockets or butter voids in our scone. So we'll get this cut up and then we'll mix up the wet ingredients for this. Now my oven is preheated to 400 degrees because we will be baking these at 400 for 18 minutes. Get this nice and cut into it. And I know I was kind of craving pumpkin scones today, so I was like, you know what? We're gonna make pumpkin scones and with brown sugar glaze. I feel like most of the time it's always a maple glaze on there, but I just love a good brown sugar glaze. It's just so nice tasting. And I feel like it adds a perfect little bit of sweetness to the scones. Get this guy kind of cut up in there. I like to do kind of a push and twist mixture because I feel like it helps that butter kind of release from my blades a little bit. So I'm not constantly having to go through with like a butter knife to pick out any of these butter chunks. Now we're almost there. Again, just no piece is really bigger than a pea. You can have a couple, you know, smaller chunks in there, but just make sure you've got it mostly cut up in there. Okay, I think we're just about good. Okay, and again, you've got to use nice cold butter because if it's room temperature, then you're not gonna get a nice flaky layers. You're gonna get more of a, you know, a pasty scone. Okay, we've got our butter cut into our flour, our flour, sugar, spice, everything mixture. And now we're gonna make our wet base. So for our wet base, and these are sourdough scones, we are going to add in a half a cup of sourdough discard. So I fed my starter up this morning, so I reserved a cup from it. And this is from both of my starters. And we need a half a cup. So I'll put a half a cup in here, and then we're gonna use a half a cup of pumpkin puree. Which I always say, scone, you can, with this, you can easily then make a muffins the next day, because muffins you need about a cup. And so using a half a cup for scones leaves you just around a cup left for muffins or, you know, whatnot, or pumpkin bread. So we're gonna scoop in here about a half a cup. Pretty good. Add it into our mixture. Save that. Then we're going to add in a fourth a cup of cream. Let's see. My hands are starting to slip.
You have a question. How do you make a sourdough starter?
So a sourdough starter is just made from equal parts flour and water that has essentially kind of fermented on your counter at room temperature, and you feed it every single day. I do have some videos on how you can make your own starter from scratch. It is, if you want to make bread with it, it does take about a week of the kind of the fermentation and feeding process for it to be up to making sourdough bread, but it is a fun journey, and I highly recommend it. But I do have videos as well as some recipe cards for everybody on that they can make their own. We're gonna add in 1 egg and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Then we're gonna mix this all together, and then we will add it to our dry mixture, and that's when we'll kind of have a nice dry shag for our, like the base of our sourdough scones, and then we'll press and fold to get the flaky layers just like you would with a biscuit. But you wanna mix all of your wet ingredients together first.
Yo has a question for you.
What's for dinner tonight? I am not entirely certain. I think I'm going to use chicken. And if my 12 or my 13-year-old, he's 13 now, if he has a say, it will be probably a fried chicken cutlet of some sort, but I'm not sure. But I think I'm going to use chicken because that's the protein I have on. Oh, I do have a pork roast though, so maybe it'll be pork. We'll see. So many decisions. Okay. We've got our wet mixture all mixed up. Just make sure you get that egg all in there, because once we add it into our dry, you're not really gonna mix it anymore. You're just going to press and fold. So we're gonna pour it in, and we'll just kind of give it a nice kind of loose mix up together so that it incorporates, but Again, you don't want to mix it together. And essentially what we're looking for is a kind of a shaggy mixture, but don't mix it to where it comes into a paste or a dough. Just kind of nice and dry like this. Okay, I'm gonna take off any bits that are stuck to my spoon, and then we are going to take this out onto the counter and we'll do our press and folds to get our scones to where we want. And so you're gonna want all of that dry mixture right there because we're gonna press and fold this into our scone, which is gonna give us nice flaky layers. And whatever you do not knead your batter or your dough here. So we're gonna just press. And then when I say by fold, you kind of just lift it up and fold it over and then you press down. So we're just gonna kind of fold it over. And I know it's not truly folding, but it's like that same concept. And every time you do this, every fold and you press down creates a flaky, delicious layer that will spring up when you bake. I'll incorporate this. And this is why you need cold butter that you cut up, because now you're pressing those layers that, cut up butter into the scone. There we go. Now, pumpkin scones are one of those scones that are on that slightly higher moisture level than a lot of scones, but I kind of counteract that by making sure I add a little bit more flour into it to kind of take out some of that moisture. Okay, I think I'm ready to start shaping my 2 pucks. So I'm going to just divide this as evenly as possible into 2 kind of things. And what I'm going to do for my pucks is I'm not really kneading it. I'm just pressing it down and kind of giving it a little bit of love into a circle. You don't want to, again, knead it, but I do like a circle. You could also just cut these into squares if you want to. But I like the little kind of triangle scones. So we've got our first one done. Let's press this guy into it. And any kind of little dry bits, just pick them up and put them on top and press them down. If you get a little stuck on you, just press it down. And then we'll transfer this over to our parchment paper, which we will bake on in the oven at 400 degrees. Here we go. I like them to be around like an inch, inch and a half in thickness for it, because I like a nice kind of thicker scone. You don't want it too thin. Okay, these look pretty darn good. So let's switch these guys over. And the way I do it is I'm just gonna take my pastry cutter here and I'm gonna slide it under until I get the whole thing to lift up. And I'll put it right on my parchment paper here. And it just allows it to transfer pretty easily. You could always shape it on your parchment paper if you want, but the only problem is you'll have little crumbs. Okay, now we're gonna cut these, each one, into 8 pieces. So I'm gonna start by cutting it down into 4ths, and then we will cut each one into another little section. Here we go. And we're gonna just pull it out. And we're gonna do that with the next one. I think I have a little helper joining us. Did you boycott nap today, Teddy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now we're gonna pull this out. Just like this. Over here, buddy.
Why?
Yeah, because I have it over here.
Over here?
Yes. Okay. So now I have my scones, and I pull them out after I cut them so that they have just a little bit of room to bake up. I'm gonna pull these guys because they're kind of close. Come right over here, buddy. Right there. I'm gonna wash my hands, and then you can help me brush them with a little bit of cream, and then we'll pop these guys in the oven. Get my hands washed up. You gonna be my super helper? Okay. So, just like what we do with our biscuits or whatnot, did you find our thing? I'm gonna slide you over, buddy. And let's grab our little bristle here. I'm gonna get you just out of the way. Okay. We are gonna dab the tops of our scone with a little bit of cream, and then we'll sprinkle just a teeny bit of sugar over the top of them, just to give a little bit of sweetness if you don't want to have a glaze on it, although we all love the glaze. And then we're just gonna dab on the top here. Just a nice little dabby dab. Here we go. Yeah, would you like to dab some on here?
Yeah.
Okay, you can do this second batch. Got it?
What is that?
That is cream. Can you dab it on the top of our scones?
What is that?
There we go, that's cream. Here we go. Beautiful.
I do that for.
Yeah, you're doing a great job. And we're just gonna do it. This is gonna help give our scones a nice kind of golden brown top to them. Now with a pumpkin scone, you don't need that as much as you would with a,
Yeah.
like a blonder scone. And then we're gonna add a little bit of cinnamon sugar. You could also use brown sugar, but I think the cinnamon sugar will be nice. And just a light little sprinkle over the top will give you just a nice bit of flavor. All right. And then we're gonna go pop these in the oven at 400 for 18 minutes. You gotta be careful, bud. Okay, so 18 minutes at 400 degrees on the top rack. Because you always want your baked goods to have that nice kind of direct heat here. So I'm gonna set my timer. There we go, for 18 minutes. And let's go work on our lamb burgerettes and our rest of our lunch thing here. Okay, so we're gonna start by making our panade. You wanna come over here and help me over here now, buddy? Okay, give Mama a hold, and we're gonna slide you over. There we go. Okay, let's start. I'm gonna start with getting the potatoes cooking up, and then we'll make the burgerettes because those won't need to cook as long. So, well, we have one egg for our thing. So I have one yellow onion here. We're gonna dice up our yellow onion, and we'll start sauteing that up. We'll add our potatoes in, and we're gonna also add carrots. So it's gonna be kind of like a carrot and potato mat, or like hash. Don't lean back on that, buddy. You might fall backwards. And it will just, I think, pair really well with the lamb. We're going to use some fresh sage in our lamb burgerettes, as well as some dried sage, which will be absolutely delicious. I know you put the egg inside the onion wrapper. You're so silly, buddy. We're going to add a little bit of olive oil. Here we go. We'll get these cooking up. And then I'm gonna be cooking my lamb burgerettes in my metal pan today because I'm gonna use the drippings to make a nice lovely gravy. Is it hiding? Are you hiding the egg?
Yeah.
You're so silly. Okay. Now, while that is cooking, we'll get our garlic next because we're gonna throw in some garlic.
I would do garlic.
You wanna smell it? Here's a small one. You wanna smell it? Smell it.
I like garlic.
It does smell like garlic. Very good. We're just gonna use a little bit of garlic. We don't need a whole lot.
No.
Yeah. It's a spice. Remember how I was talking to you about spice leaves? But you can use a garlic on here if you want, or you can keep it out if you don't. But I think the garlic is just adding a little bit of fresh is gonna just play nice with these skillets. Potatoes. Okay, I'm going to use, I've got 2 giant russet potatoes. We're gonna use both of them. I'm going to keep the skins on for this, mainly because my older kids aren't here, so they will eat, everyone will eat these well without this, with the skins on. And I'm gonna dice them up nice and small so that they'll kind of saute up fairly quickly. Is that? You're hiding the egg. And then once our onions have started kind of caramelizing, we'll throw our potatoes in. But I do want them to have a minute to get a little bit of that nice, heat on the skillet before we add the potatoes.
Right here. I put onion.
Oh, you did. Awesome. Okay, we'll get our next one.
That's potato. I know
Yeah,
that potato.
it is a potato. This is a russet potato. Now you could always use a Yukon Gold if you wanted to. That one's a little bit waxier. It would have a little bit more moisture into it. I like this because it crisps up really, really nicely. And I think will be perfect for a little hash here.
Cut it.
Yes, I'm cutting it.
I'm really good cutter.
Oh, thank you. And we're going to throw these in there. We're going to toss our onions here with just a second. We'll use some Toms to kind of coat them up. And then we're going to make a panade for our lamb burgerettes. And so, yes. So it's not a burger since I am going to add a panade base to it. So they're similar to meatballs, but I like to make them into small little patties because I find that they cook up really nice in the pan. And then we're going to use some of their drippings to make a lovely kind of gravy from it.
That's a lot of potato.
That's right. That is a lot of potatoes. Let's give these a little toss in here. And kind of coat these up. Beautiful. And they're already starting to get a little bit of translucent. Perfect. And now I'm going to add in just a smidge of my garlic here. Again, this is about a half a teaspoon, so it was 3 cloves of garlic. You could also use a teaspoon or like a half a teaspoon of garlic. That will work just fine in here. I like the little extra garlic flavor to it. Okay, we'll give those about 30 seconds or so. Are you a parrot? Okay, let me slide you over. I need to get my peeler out, buddy.
Peeler?
Yeah, I'm going to give you some carrot snakes, okay?
Carrot?
We're going to peel our carrot, and then I'm going to dice it up. Here's some carrots. There you go. And that way they'll get rid of this dry outer bit and keep the nice, tender, moist part. But we're going to cube the carrots up a little bit smaller than the potatoes. It does look like snakes. Because I don't want them as big as the potatoes because carrots take a little bit longer to cook up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A bit longer.
Here you go. Now you've got all of your carrot snakes.
I like your name.
Okay. Our onions have started to kind of caramelize. We're getting a good sear on it. And I'm going to toss my potatoes in now. I'll let them start cooking up. And then we can dice up our carrots. And we'll get those going. And then we can work on our little burgerettes.
Correct.
And we have to make a brown sugar glaze for our scones, but that will be fairly easy to pop up. Okay. Now I'm going to coat all of this with our little bit of our olive oil in here. I might need to add a bit more. I'm going to turn my heat down to about a 6 because, again, I don't want it too hot that I burn my end before I get them nice and crispy. So a little bit lower will be delicious and give you that perfect crispiness without burning it. I'm going to add just a little bit more olive oil, about another teaspoon and a half on here because potatoes are kind of spongy, especially russets, and they'll just soak up all of that oil. And I want to make sure they coat it. Soak it all up, buddy. There we go. Get those onions back in here. I feel like I have them all tossed up in that olive oil. And now we're gonna dice up these carrots. We'll throw those carrots in as well. And I'm gonna then put a lid on it and let it kind of steam saute.
I have carrot.
You have carrot snakes. So I'm gonna quarter it. Oh, thank you. Because again, you don't want to have super big chunks of carrots because they will be a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
Take a little bit longer to cook up than if you leave them too big.
Be too big.
Yeah.
I eat.
Here we go.
You have a question? Are you planning to go live when your kids are on Thanksgiving break?
We will go live for some of our Thanksgiving break. Now, we will be at my parents' house for a lot of it because my family comes in town. But we do hope to do a couple lives there. And we'll just kind of play it by ear. This is when Thanksgiving is when like all of my siblings like descend on my parents' house with their kids. So it's like 40 people, and it's
carrot hat.
yeah, it is a carrot hat. It's pretty crazy and chaotic there. But I always bring over like baked goods and whatnot. So I hope to do some morning streams with stuff to kind of start feeding everybody. Oh, nice. Okay, let's mix in our carrots here. There we go. Kind of coat them up, and then I'm going to put the lid on and we're gonna steam cook it for a little bit. I'm not gonna add my seasoning yet until the end because I don't want my seasoning to stick to the bottom of my pan.
How many siblings do you have?
So I have 9 siblings, but I have 6 full and 3 half. So all of my full siblings will come in for Thanksgiving on there. The only time like we all get together, like the full and the half, is like weddings and whatnot. So we need to have a couple more of those, get everybody together. Okay, we are going to make our panade for our lamb burgerettes. So I'm gonna take 1 slice of bread because I have a pound of ground lamb, and I'm gonna soak it with enough cream to make it soggy. Oh, it's a little snake, but not too like thick in the paste, you know, like too wet. You want it to be able to bind together. So you definitely need it to be mushy enough so you don't have big chunks of bread, but you also don't want it to have too much liquid that it doesn't hold it well together. So just enough, and it's about, I will say, 1 to 2 tablespoons per slice of bread. And then we're gonna add in 1 egg, which is what I use. I do 1 slice of bread and 1 egg per pound of meat.
I see egg.
Yeah, you see the egg in there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Hey, yeah.
And now we're gonna add our spices. So I'm gonna have to cut some of these up. We're gonna add in some fresh sage, which I think pairs wonderful with lamb. I just absolutely love sage.
I like.
You wanna touch it? Feel how soft those leaves are.
That's really soft.
And you smell it, buddy? So I want about a tablespoon of fresh sage. Now I will say a tablespoon pre-chopped. It is an herb. And then I'll grab some of my green onions. We're gonna do 2 green onions as well. I'm gonna cut off the bottom of my green onions, and then we'll slice these guys up. Are you done with it? Okay, I'll add it in here. And then I'm gonna give it a good mince because I don't want my spices or anything too big when we are putting them in our meatballs. You want them smaller so they disperse throughout.
Yeah.
Those are, yes, those are green onions, so they're a little different than the other onions we used. You use green onions.
Yeah.
And we're gonna slice them up, and I just like to add them all together. That way you can really mince them up nice well. Do they smell yummy, Teddy?
Not yucky.
Okay, so we're gonna get this nice and base, and this is gonna add just a really great fresh flavor to our burgerettes. which will be absolutely lovely. We're also gonna add some onion powder, some garlic, salt, and a little bit of black pepper, and just a little bit of dried sage. So we get super sagey. They're gonna be very wise burgerettes. Okay, so we've got our minced up herbs here. And now we're gonna add in a little bit of garlic salt. We're gonna add about a teaspoon and a half. So a couple good shakes, because it's got to season up the whole lamb. We're gonna add about a half a teaspoon of black pepper.
Black pepper and
You wanna do a good shake for me? There we go. Thank you.
here.
And then we're gonna add in about a half tablespoon of onion powder.
Onion powder? Oh, onion powder, really cool.
It is really cool. And then last, we're gonna add in just a little bit of dried sage. Mama has to open this one up, buddy.
Why?
Because it's new.
I like.
And we're gonna do a nice, really light shake. We're gonna do about a half a teaspoon of dried sage. Just gives you a bit more of that kind of pop and that flavor.
Oh, you have a question. How much garlic salt per pound of meat?
About 1.5 teaspoons of garlic salt per meat, I find works well. So like a half a tablespoon. And that's because garlic salt is not quite as salty as regular salt, so you need a little bit more, but you want that nice garlic flavor. Now I'm gonna go in with my hands and we're gonna kind of smush this through and make a nice, lovely kind of base to it. Here we go. And squeeze it through, make sure you break up any big chunks of bread or whatnot. And now we're gonna go in with our pound of lamb. So let me get my hands washed up real quick. And we're gonna add this lamb in, and then we're gonna go in and we're gonna form our little burgerettes here. Yeah, it'll be yummy, little burgerettes. So we're gonna add this whole pound in.
So big. That's so big.
Yes, it's our meat.
Meat.
There we go. Just over here. And then we're gonna shape these guys up. You're so silly. So I'm gonna mix it all the way through. So we have, this is our panade, our nice herby panade, which is gonna be the binder of our burgerettes. And we are going to kind of mix it all the way through, and then we'll be ready to shape it. But you wanna make sure you get all of that seasoned paste throughout. Otherwise, you'll have a bland burgerette, and you really need it in there.
Yeah.
Here we go. There we go. So now I've kind of got my whole little paste in, and you can see it's kind of all mixed in and flavored up our lamb lovely. It's gonna keep it nice and tender and just delicious. You do. Now we're gonna shape up our little burgerettes. And I like to make just little small patties that we will fry up. You've got a little carrot snake, just a little itty bitty baby one. There we go. Can you go find one of your play snakes? Yes. Oh, cool. Here we go. And then what we're gonna do is, you could always bake these up in the oven, but if I'm gonna do them in the oven, then I just leave them as a meatball. But when I do pan fry, I make them into little patties. That is going to allow them to cook more evenly and less chance of breaking up. There we go. So just kind of flatten it down, knowing that just like with a regular burger, these are going to seize up a little bit, but you do have that base that is going to allow it to give it a little bit more bulk. Here we go. And then after we fry these up, we are going to make a really delicious gravy that we will pour over our, like, the little burgerettes and our potatoes, just for this delicious, like, kind of extra little sauce. I feel like sauces are the bomb. There we go. And I think we'll add a little bit more to that one. Okay. Are you being silly, boy? Yep, we've got our little burgerettes. Okay. They are perfect timing. I'm gonna wash my hands, and then we're gonna go get our scones out of the oven. Get my hands all cleaned up. Okay, so let me grab our pumpkin scones have been cooking for 18 minutes at 400. I'm gonna just take a quick peek. Looks beautiful. They really popped up nicely. We will be making a nice little glaze to go over these in just a second, but they are looking pretty fantastic. Okay, let me grab a little trivet here. Yes, they're very hot. I'm gonna keep these over here. Beautiful. Okay, let's start turning on our burner here so we can cook up our burgerettes. I am going to fry my lamb burgerettes in butter instead of oil because I'm going to use the drippings to make my gravy, which will be delicious. Yeah. So we're gonna do just about a tablespoon and a half of butter, and we're gonna let this melt up. We're gonna flip our potatoes here. It's very hot, buddy, so stay back, okay? And beautiful. We've got nice crispy edges on them, but they're nice and tender. Perfect. And the trick with getting these just beautiful crispy edges like that is letting it fry without mixing or touching it. Just letting it be in that space. Perfect. Okay, I'm gonna spread them back out. And we're gonna put the lid back on. I'm gonna turn it down to a 4. It was on a 5, so now it's down to a 4 since we're almost done and I don't want them to overcook. Okay. Let's get that nice and heated up. I'm heating my butter up over about a medium temperature because, again, I don't want my butter to brown so much, but I want my pan to get nice and hot here for our burgerettes. And then, while we're waiting, we can also get our butter melted for our glaze here. And this is going to be a brown sugar glaze. We're going to melt about 2 tablespoons of butter. It's a little, I need a little bit more. So 2 tablespoons of butter. And then once it's melted, we are going to add in 2 tablespoons of brown sugar and give it a quick swirl. You do not want to make your brown sugar turn into candy. So I always say melt the butter, then add the brown sugar after you remove it from the heat. Here we go. And now our pan. I feel like we're getting to a nice kind of heat here. I'm gonna get another little spatula for this. There we go. And then we're gonna add in our little burgerettes and we're gonna cook those up and let them kind of sear off. I should be able to get all of them in my pan here, which will be perfect because they only need a few minutes to kind of cook off, and then we'll make a lovely gravy with their drippings. Go. Just give them a little bit of space between. Fill up your outer edges first because your inner one is going to be your hottest area. So if you do the outside first, then you're going to get everyone kind of cooked more evenly.
You have a question about the lamb. Do you have to cook it well done, or can lamb be left a little pink?
It can be left a little pink. You can treat it just like, beef. So lamb, I love a nice, when I do like lamb chops or lamb roast, I like a nice medium rare on it, pinkish, a little bit of red in there, because makes it just even better. Now, lamb already is a really wonderful tender meat. So that is something that is nice about it. You don't, it takes a lot to kind of make it dry or overcooked. Let's get our glaze going here. We have our butter melting. And that is almost there. So I'm going to give this a nice little swirl. Once that butter is completely melted, then we are going to add in our brown sugar. But we're going to turn off our back burner because you do not want it to get like burnt into the candy. If you do, just toss it out and redo it. Okay, so our butter completely melted. We're gonna add in about 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. Should be right there. And while you can still use the residual heat from your burner to help melt it, that's gonna give you that kind of just that perfect brown sugar flavor to it. There we go. But again, you don't want it to turn to candy. Okay, so here we've got it nice and kind of melted. Beautiful. Now we're gonna add in some cream, about 2 tablespoons of cream. That's gonna give you this richer base to our glaze. Grab this right here. So let's add in about 2 tablespoons. 1, 2. Give this a nice mix. And this is going to help dissolve the brown sugar because you can't just mix it in. It gets too gritty, so you want to dissolve it so that you get all the flavor of the brown sugar, but without there. Here, 1 second. I'll help you. We're just gonna, okay. And I'm gonna add in some pumpkin pie spice in here to add a little extra flavor to this and keep it like really delicious. So we're gonna add in about a ½ teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice in here. You don't need too much, just enough to get, our flavors in there. And we'll mix it in. And then we're gonna add a little bit of powdered sugar here, but it looks like our burgerettes are getting ready here to kind of flip here. So, there we go. We've got a nice, beautiful kind of brownish sear on the bottom of our burgerettes, which is beautiful. And again, I always say that middle one cooks the fastest in here. There we go. Beautiful. And we're gonna cook them out on the other side, and then we are gonna turn this into a lovely gravy. Okay. We'll be ready to add our powdered sugar in there. Let's get our potatoes flipping here. Beautiful. We're almost to this last part on our kind of potato and carrot hash. You can see they're all nice and kind of translucent, looking wonderful. I'm gonna leave the lid off now so that it can kind of crisp up this last little bit, and we're gonna add in our spices. Okay, so for our spices, we're gonna use a little bit of Mrs. Dash's Table Blend, around a teaspoon or so. Shake. Bring it all in there. We're gonna add in some onion powder. Shake it on. There we go. Kind of coat it up. And we'll use about a teaspoon and a half, I think. Let me see where I'm at. We're just gonna use a little. There we go. And we're gonna add in garlic salt. You're on about a teaspoon or so of garlic salt, maybe a little bit more, teaspoon and a half. And then we're gonna add in just a pinch of sage because that will just kind of bring everything together. So like a ½ teaspoon. Now we're not gonna mix it in yet. We're gonna let it steam up first. That's gonna hydrate our spices and allow them to mix a little bit nicer. let's finish off our glaze here for our scones. Let's slide this up. So we added in about a half a teaspoon of pumpkin spice to our brown sugar, cream, and butter mixture. And now we're gonna add our powdered sugar to this, and this is going to give our base to our glaze, which we will drizzle over our scones for that extra pop of deliciousness. There we go. So I'm gonna start off with about a half a cup of brown sugar. Check these guys out real quick. See how they're looking. Oh, beautiful. Perfect. Slide these last ones over. Beautiful. They are all cooked perfectly. So I'm going to slide this right off of here. We're going to turn it off. I'll move those to a plate in just a second, but I want to whip up this glaze first. We're going to mix this here. And I'm going to start with a half a cup of powdered sugar, and then we'll move to a little bit more if we need it. We essentially want the consistency of Elmer's glue, so we don't want it to be too thin. We want it nice and thick so that it will ooze over there. There we go. A little bit more, just a touch more. Perfect. And there we go. So here is our brown sugar and pumpkin spice glaze that will be delicious.
Yeah, you have a question? Do the lamb burgerettes go well with cheese or no cheese?
No cheese on them. Lamb is a bit more gamey, so I don't like to put cheese on it. These are gonna have, I'm gonna make a nice gravy that will drizzle over it with the drippings in here. So let me get off all of our little nice burgerettes here. And then we'll mix together our spices into our hash that we have, and we'll be ready to plate up here in about a minute or two. Okay. So you see how our pan just has all this lovely little drippings? Those are gonna add so much great flavor to our gravy here in just a second. Let's mix our spices into our potatoes. Beautiful. Kind of coat them up so we have this nice little hash mixture. Beautiful. So I'm gonna spread it out, finish it up. I'm gonna keep it nice and low because I don't want those spices to kind of cook along. So I have a little bit of that fat and drippings in here. What we're gonna start with, let me grab my water. I've got some beef bouillon, some cream, and now we need a little bit of flour. There we go. We're gonna start with about a tablespoon of flour. I'm gonna mix it in, and this is gonna be the base to our gravy. I'll add a little bit more. And, oh, I don't wanna use that whisk. I almost used our brown sugar whisk. Funny. Let me grab my second whisk, because I have more than one. And we're gonna make a roux with the drippings here. Yeah, about a tablespoon was perfect. Again, we started off with some butter in here, and that's just gonna be, you're cooking it in kind of that lamb fat and the butter. We're gonna let it kind of thicken up right there. And we're gonna add in, I've got water here and I've got some beef bouillon. We're gonna mix some beef bouillon into it, and that's what we're gonna mix into our, to make the base of our gravy, as well as some cream. We're gonna use a fork because it's gonna mix into it a little bit faster than with just a spoon. But I put about a teaspoon and a half to 2 teaspoons in here because it needs to flavor up all of it. Now you could use straight up beef broth if you want, but I find the bouillon gives you a bit more flavor. Here we go. And this is gonna be the base for our lovely gravy. Right now I have my burner completely turned off, but once it cools down just a little bit, we'll turn it back on, but I don't wanna scald it. There we go. So I'm gonna bring it down to about a 4. And we're gonna whisk this in here and incorporate it until we have this kind of all like the liquid mixed into our roux, and it will thicken up. The more liquid we add will help thin it out a little bit more, but as the heat goes, it's going to thicken up some as well. And we're also going to add in some cream to make it just a nice kind of creamy gravy. Give a little whisk in here to get some of that beef bouillon in here. Now you'll have little meat drippings in here that will be just delicious from the lamb, like any little bits that fell off. That's going to add a lot of flavor to it. Here we go. Okay, we're going to let that sit and heat, and while we do that, let's drizzle our glaze over our pumpkin scones. So we've got our brown sugar glaze, and these are our sourdough pumpkin scones. We used a 1/2 cup of pumpkin in here and a 1/2 cup of sourdough discard. So you've got all that goodness in there to keep it nice and still like moist and fluffy in the middle of it, but you get that nice little kind of cookie crunch on the outside. We used pumpkin pie spice and cinnamon to season these guys up, so they are going to be fabulous. I was really craving pumpkin scones today. I'll drizzle these right over the top. I find a whisk helps it really like incorporate well and drizzle over it well.
You have a question, are your recipes posted anywhere?
So we do upload the video to all of our all of our lives to the link on our page, so you can always recreate our recipes by watching there. And then I do occasionally send out a freebie for everyone, but we have most of our recipes are for our members, and we send out about 3 each week of recipes that we cook during the week for them. Okay, this is thickening up wonderfully. I'm gonna add a little bit more. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of cream because again, I want this creaminess to my gravy, and I don't want it to get too runny before adding the cream in. So we're gonna add in about 1/4 cup. You don't need a lot to get you that creamy base for it, but this is gonna really like elevate the gravy and just make it so velvety and delicious. Beautiful. A little bit more of our beef broth. Excellent. Okay, I'm gonna give it a quick taste, see where we're at. Oh, that is delicious. Okay, we are ready to serve up. Let me give our potatoes one last flip over. Beautiful. We've got our lovely carrot and potato hash with onions in here. So let me grab our plate and we're gonna serve up. Gravy. Let's get a little ladle so we can ladle this over our bowl because it's going to be delicious. Okay, so we're going to start with our corn and potato hash. So we sauteed up a yellow onion, diced up some russet potatoes and carrots, and fried them up, seasoned them with a little bit of Mrs. Dash's table blend, onion powder, garlic, salt. And then we are gonna layer our beautiful lamb burgerettes that we seasoned with fresh sage, green onions, onion powder, black pepper, garlic, salt for just this lovely seasoned, almost like a meatball, but shaped like a burgerette. And then we're gonna drizzle it with our homemade gravy using our leftover drippings from our meat. And of course, let's not forget, we will have a gorgeous pumpkin scone as a little sweet treat at the end with some brown sugar glaze. Well guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page, so if you ever want to recreate any of our recipes, all you have to do is go to our page, search for what we made, and you can watch and cook along with me again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. I've got all my cutting boards, knives, pots and pans, everything I use in the kitchen I have in there for you guys to check out. But again, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe.